From the length and breadth of Canada, curling champions from every province converged on the scene of the 1954 Brier. A special curling train made up in Montreal bore eastern contenders west, through Ontario and across the broad western prairies. Their destination was Edmonton, focal point of Canada's vast new multi-million-dollar oil, gas, and petrochemical industries. Here is progress that has captured the imagination of every Canadian and has set off an unprecedented boom in Alberta's industrial development. Home of Premier E.C. Manning's social credit government, Edmonton has kept pace with the growth of the oil fields and has been proudly termed North America's fastest growing city. Here, too, is the province's seat of learning, the University of Alberta. The Canadian National Railway Station was the debarkation point, and Edmonton enthusiasts went all out to accord their visitors a Western welcome. The official reception committee was swelled by hundreds of well-wishers as the curling special pulled in. This was the first time in the 25-year history of the Brier that the competition had been held in Edmonton. Alberta was second to Manitoba in number of Brier wins with 4. But perhaps the crowd sensed that there was another Alberta win in the making as the curlers marched from the station platform. Enthusiasm was not confined to adults. Even the weatherman cooperated, and the city streets were bare of snow and ice as the traditional pipe band led officials and competitors through the city streets. Interest generated by the Brier was evident on every side, and large crowds lined the parade route. Curlers arrive at the Macdonald Hotel, curling headquarters during the competition. Edmonton Gardens, the city's remodeled hockey arena, provided the setting for the national championship. During the week-long competition, many spectators came to watch this colorful event. As the Pipers led the 11 provincial champions up the ice at the opening ceremonies, there was a notable lack of predictions as to the final outcome. Traditionally, Manitoba, winner of 14 out of 24 Briers, is installed as the favorite. And this year, Jimmy Welsh, winner in 1947, was back to represent Manitoba. But each year, the competitive level gets just a little stiffer all down the line, and there's many a slip even on the best of rinks. The Macdonald Brier is a round-robin competition, each rink playing the other once. With one team representing each province and 2 from Ontario, one of the 11 rinks receives a bye every draw, and there are 11 draws. Ross Harstone, Brier trustee, holds the broom as Gordon Hudson of Winnipeg, who acted on behalf of Senator John T. Haig, who was ill, delivers the opening stone. Sweeping chores are performed by David M. Stewart of the Macdonald Tobacco Company and T. A. Gregg, president of the Alberta Curling Association. Luck of the opening draw pitted Alberta against Saskatchewan, 2 great rinks destined to finish first and second, respectively, when the final games had been written into the record books. This was the second Brier appearance for the famous Campbell rink from Avonlea. Their first effort was back in 1947 at St. John, New Brunswick. On that occasion, Skip Garnet Campbell, playing with his 2 brothers Glenn and Don, and with his father forming the 4th member of the rink, confounded a good many of the curling critics when he led his team to 3rd place. But Garnet and his brothers are up against mighty tough competition from the Alberta entry. Matt Baldwin didn't form his championship team until 1953, but each member had a tremendous aggregate of competitive curling experience. Playing 3rd for Matt is Glenn Gray, a well-known Alberta amateur golfer and former Willingdon Cup member. Pete Ferry is the 2nd, and Jim Collins is the lead. The game was close most of the way, but the handwriting was on the wall when Baldwin threw 2 4-enders at Campbell in the 4th and 5th ends. Garnet never stopped trying. drawing his last rock to the house to count 2. But it wasn't enough to wipe out Alberta's lead, and Baldwin wins 12-11. Jimmy Welsh and his veteran rink from Winnipeg's Deer Lodge didn't curl to form this year. And here Jimmy tries a double takeout against Quebec that doesn't quite come off. Bill Tracy and his Quebec champions from Arvida didn't have it too easy either. But here his out-turn draw pulls to the back of the 4-foot to make it 2 for Quebec. Welsh tries to draw to the Quebec stone. But he misses narrowly, and Tracy counts 2 to make the score 9-6 in favor of Manitoba. The Quebec skip attempts to draw to the Manitoba shot. He's wide and a little light, but he comes in for second stone. Jimmy's brother Alex calls the shot. An out-turn draw to the inside of the Quebec stone, and here it comes. Just what the doctor ordered. Bill White, the Quebec third, asks for a double takeout on the in-turn. But Tracy is wide, and he takes out his own stone, and Welsh counts 2 to make the final score read 11-7 Manitoba. As Prince Edward Island and Ontario go into the 12th end of their game, the score is tied 8-all. Here the stone of Bob Cross, Ontario third, taps one of his own and rolls over, and Ontario lies 3. Skip Doc Macdonald asks his third, Snag Squarebriggs, for a double takeout. Here's the stone, and it looks pretty good. It takes out the shot rock and moves the other over, and PEI lies 1. It's an in-turn takeout for skipper Ross Tarleton of Ontario. And it's good all the way. That leaves Ontario with 3. Skip Macdonald's takeout shot is a trifle wide, and he rolls over to leave Ontario still lying shot. Third, Bob Cross asks the Ontario skip for an in-turn draw. With the assistance of some vigorous sweeping, it comes in to bite the front of the 12-foot. The Prince Edward Island skip has to make a difficult takeout on the out-turn. Will he do it? It's close, but close doesn't count. And Ontario scores 1 to gain a narrow 9-8 win. There's a big end coming up in this game between New Brunswick and Nova Scotia. It's the 9th end, and the score is 10-7 in his favor as skip Dick McCulley of New Brunswick takes out Nova Scotia's counter to leave his own rink shot. Nova Scotia is lying second and third. If Skip Reg Piercy makes his in-turn takeout shot, he'll count 3. And he does, to tie it all up at 10 apiece. Here in the 10th end, Skip Piercy has to draw to the New Brunswick shot through a port on his first rock. It's a tough shot. Well, that's just about as close as you can get without making it. The same shot by skipper Dick McCulley. With just a shade less weight. That leaves New Brunswick lying 2. Well, Skipper Piercy has another chance. It's the same shot, an in-turn draw. But this time, Reg hangs up on the lone New Brunswick guard. The rinks alternated on 4 consecutive 3 ends in this game, and now it's Skip McCulley's turn. It looks a little light. Well, I guess not. It's right in there to make the count 13-10 for New Brunswick. That was all McCulley and his men needed, and the final score is 14-11, New Brunswick. The importance of good leads is apparent in the 5th end of the Alberta-Northern Ontario game, with both teams tied at 4 wins apiece. Jim Collins, the Alberta lead, throws an in-turn draw that slides to the 4-foot. And Tommy Callahan, his opposite number for Northern Ontario, promptly takes it out. It was the start of a typical knockout end, and Alberta skip Matt Baldwin asks Collins to make a removal. He does. Callahan is asked for another takeout stone, and there you have it, 4 perfect lead stones. It was Don Groom who finally missed, and Alberta went ahead 4-3. The knockout style resulted in a dead end in the 6th, and here in the 7th, we have an empty house as Skip Baldwin throws his last rock. He gets some professional sweeping from Jim Collins, Pete Ferry, and Glenn Gray to draw nicely to the 4-foot. But Skipper Groom isn't the kind of curler to miss on 2 ends in a row, and his last rock is on the broom all the way. It's 1 for Northern Ontario, and the score is tied again 4-all. In the 8th end, third Ray Cook asks Skipper Groom for another takeout. Groom makes the takeout, but on the wrong side, and stays outside the house. It's up to Skip Baldwin to draw to the house for 1. The weight is perfect, and the stone winds up on the edge of the 4-foot to give Alberta the lead at 5-4. There was another dead end in the 9th, and here in the 10th, Glenn Gray delivers an in-turn draw to an empty house. And there it is, right on the button. It's up to southpaw Ray Cook to take it out for Northern Ontario. He takes a little less ice with his takeout shot. It's good, and now Northern Ontario lies 1. Skip Matt Baldwin asks his third, Glenn Gray, for a takeout. He makes the shot, but fails to stay in himself. Skip Groom asks his third for an out-turn draw to the side of the house. And that's exactly what Ray Cook delivers. Outer ring takeouts are difficult, but Matt Baldwin goes for the Northern Ontario rock. And makes it, but rolls out himself. Don Groom of Northern Ontario is making it as difficult as possible for Alberta's Matt Baldwin by putting another rock right back on the extreme left side of the house. These are the kind of shots that proved Matt Baldwin to be a great curler. He goes for the difficult takeout again, and Glenn Gray has to climb the divider as Baldwin makes it. Here's the shot that leads are supposed to make every time, but even skips are human. Don Groom is narrow and light with his second stone, and that makes it 2 dead ends in a row. In the 11th end, Northern Ontario picked up one, and here in the 12th end, it's tied at 5 apiece. Ray Cook makes his second stone good, and Northern Ontario lies 2. It's tit for tat in this game, and Skip Baldwin asks third Glenn Gray for an in-turn takeout. There's the delivery, and there's the slide. And it's good all the way. Here we go again, says Cook, as he asks Skip Groom for just one more takeout. It's a beautiful shot that rolls over nicely. It's Matt Baldwin's turn now. His rock gets enough of the Northern Ontario shot to move it out, but he fails to stay himself. Skip Groom takes plenty of ice as he tries to draw inside the second Alberta stone. It's a perfect stone that not only comes in for shot, but guards the second Northern Ontario stone. Glenn Gray shows Skipper Baldwin exactly where he wants him to put this last and most crucial stone. This is the time when a skipper needs ice water in his veins. And Matt Baldwin demonstrates just why he's a great curler. Look at that shot. Right on the button. That's curling at its best, and it gives Alberta victory by a 6-5 count and the lead 5-0 in the 1954 Brier. The 6th draw found Newfoundland trailing 6-3 in the 8th end of their game against Quebec. But here is skipper Bob Kent drawing in with his last rock to lie 4. Skip Bill Tracy can't afford to miss on this shot. It's got to be right in there if Quebec is to hold the lead. And it is right on the button to give Quebec one and lengthen their lead to 7-3. With a score 7-5 for Quebec in the 10th, Skip Kent plays a long guard to protect Newfoundland's 2 shot rocks. Skipper Tracy changes all that with a takeout shot that cuts Newfoundland down to 1 and leaves Quebec with second and third stones. It's an in-turn draw for Skip Kent, and he has beautiful weight as he nestles in there to make it 2 for the youngest province. The occasion calls for a double takeout. And Skip Tracy is dead on as he pulls a perfect shot to give Quebec 3. That made the score 10-5 for the Quebecers, and they never looked back. Alberta suffered only 1 loss in their march to victory in the 1954 Brier, and it came in the 8th draw against Ontario. Typical of the play in this great battle was this double takeout by Ontario skip Ross Tarleton. Tarleton's shot was good, but it left him vulnerable. And Alberta skip Matt Baldwin makes no mistake as he removes Tarleton's stone and picks up a badly needed 3-ender to make the count 4-3 Ontario. In the 9th end, with the score 5-3 in his favor, but with Alberta lying 2, the Ontario skip's first rock is a shade light. To prevent the obvious possibility of a raise, skip Matt Baldwin places his first rock in front of the Ontario stones. Ontario's third, Bob Cross, calls the signal for a difficult double raise. Here it comes, aided by vigorous sweeping. It's a beautiful shot that raises Baldwin's stone onto an Ontario rock and leaves the Easterners lying 1. Yes, this shot calls for a little study. It's not the kind most of us like to make. Here it comes. But it hangs up on a long Ontario guard, and the East counts 1 to make it 6-3. Ontario clung to the lead stubbornly, and going into the 12th, they were well in front by an 8-4 count. Baldwin and his crew never stopped trying, and with his first stone, the Alberta skip took out the Ontario shot. But this was Ontario's day in the sun. Skip Tarleton makes no mistake with his final rock. Matt Baldwin didn't throw his last stone, and it was an 8-5 win for Ontario. One of Saskatchewan's toughest games came in the 8th draw against BC. Leading 6-2 in the 7th end, BC skip Bung Cartmel puts a guard on his shot rock. Skip Garnet Campbell's first stone gets caught on the BC guard, and the Pacific Coast rink lies too. Cartmell's second rock, a wide outturn, is a shade light. It rubs his own guard and stops in front. Third Don Campbell asks Brother Garnet for an outturn draw around the BC guard. The Campbell brothers demonstrate the value of good sweeping, and the stone is dead on the mark to give the boys from Avonlea 1 point. In the 9th end, Saskatchewan pulled a 4-end, and in the 10th, they went ahead 8-7. With his rink lying 1 in the 11th end, skipper Garnet Campbell lays down a beautiful guard on the shot rock. Cartmell tries for a double takeout. He removes the guard rock, but leaves the shot, and Saskatchewan picks up another single to lead 9-7 and win by an ultimate score of 10-7. In the 11th draw, Alberta needed one more win for a Brier victory. Leading 6-2 in the 9th end against New Brunswick, Matt Baldwin's last stone took a New Brunswick shot to leave him lying 2. Dick McCulley wasn't giving anything away as he draws in with his last rock to count 1. Score, 6-3, Alberta. Leading 9-5 in the final end and with the game won, Matt Baldwin lets his final rock go with the longest slide in Brier history. And there it is, curlers, right on the button. Players and spectators crowd around to offer their congratulations to Baldwin and his great rink. Once again, Pibroch sounds the cue as the presentation ceremonies get underway for Canada's only truly national sports competition, in which each one of the Dominion's 10 provinces is represented. This represents the culminating point in the curling career of Matt Baldwin and his rink. Matt may win the Brier again someday, but nothing will match the thrill of this victory. J.A. Jim McCool, chairman of the Brier Playdown Committee, introduces David M. Stewart of the Macdonald Tobacco Company. Mr. Stewart congratulates the winners and runners-up and pays tribute to the great curling displayed by all competitors. The gleaming McDonald's Brier tankard, emblematic of the Canadian Single Rink Curling Championship, is presented to Matt Baldwin, a worthy holder of the great trophy. Ross Harstone of Hamilton, member of the Board of Brier Trustees, presents individual awards. To Skip Baldwin, to Glenn Gray, third. To the second, Pete Ferry. And to Jim Collins, lead. Gordon Hudson honors the Campbell brothers, Garnet, Don, Glenn, and Gordon. There is always the temptation each year to say that this was the greatest Brier of them all. Whether the 1954 renewal was the greatest or not will be resolved in the future. But one thing is certain. The 25th Brier measured up to every previous high standard set by Canada's greatest curling classic.